So let's say you've gotten someone to verbally agree to a deal. You're moving forward with it. With digital assets, what does that due diligence process look like once you've kind of got on the same page about that pricing structure?
Yeah. So actually, the bulk of my due diligence process happens before the offer stage because I want to make sure that like the price that I offer is something that has the context behind like the current state of that site or that asset. And so really, once you reach the offer stage, I'll typically go into a period of exclusivity after signing a letter of intent for typically 30 days to basically get deep full access to like all financial statements outside of what they have already provided, access to Google Analytics, Search Console, and any other kind of meaningful data and reports to essentially just verify all of your assumptions and get all of the legalese and paperwork done. Once you enter that period of exclusivity, I typically like it's a lot of window dressing at that point, and you're basically just looking for like any red flags or watchouts that were unexpected or different from what you assumed in a lot of your due diligence. But as for the due diligence process itself, I have a lot of kind of core components that I'm looking at that honestly a lot of folks in the SEO community have been really forthcoming with sharing, especially in the last couple of years, which has been awesome. Just a lot of good stimuli out there for just how to value websites, which has been great. But really looking at a few things. So one is deep diving on traffic and rankings. So what has been ebbing and flowing over the past 12, 24, 36 months? What are their main keyword buckets? What are their top pages? And are they too top heavy potentially in certain areas? So are there certain keywords where, their top 5 keywords, if they topple on some of those, like the bulk of their traffic is gone. And same for top pages. So typically,
Smart.
diversity of traffic is certainly something that I'm looking at there, as well as topical mix of traffic, right? Google, especially over the last several years, we've seen this shift to topical authority for ranking well in a lot of different subcategories. And so making sure that for depends on the category in the website that you feel confident about them being deep enough in those categories or not spread too thin, certainly across a bunch of different stuff where they're sort of a master of none. But looking at traffic mix, looking at traffic trends against algorithm updates, like we talked about, to see what has potentially caused a lot of that stuff. I'll actually give an example there around traffic fluctuations. I was looking at this site last April that if you look at just the overall traffic curve for the website, it looks like, which it did, got hit by Medic and then a few other major algorithm updates that were largely or meaningfully affected, not largely, in those health niches. And that's where a lot of their traffic got hit. But given like the core focus of the site, that was a lot of like auxiliary content or ancillary content on the site that to me as the business owner didn't really matter if I lost that traffic because it really
Wasn't relevant.
wasn't relevant, wasn't that monetizable. But if you looked at the kind of base of traffic that was the stuff that I cared about and kind of the core business, that was really steady over the course of the last 3-4 years of the site. And so that actually gave us a lot more confidence to buy that site, which we ended up buying. It's still been steady since. And so I think there's, like I said, context around what areas of the site those traffic fluctuations are coming from. So traffic analysis is obviously a big one. And then looking at the competitive landscape trends as well. So I mentioned looking at SERPs earlier and just macro trends of like, are there any SERP features that Google's going to potentially or has already inserted into the landscape that can be huge disruptors for potential traffic to the site. I'll give an example in like the personal finance niche. Google rolls out or has rolled out a lot of calculators over the past several years, right? Like a mortgage calculator. So if you're mortgagecalculator.org, like your business, your entire business just got like annihilated from a top line traffic standpoint. In 2015, 2016 when they rolled out that calculator. But that could be an example of potentially a site that you buy for a redirect or tuck-in acquisition where you really just acquire it for the authority to drive towards one of your main websites, obviously. That would be a probably more expensive redirect acquisition. But
sure.
Yeah. Anyways, I'm looking at the competitive landscape, seeing what Google's doing and where they're headed, and see if there's any sort of like big watchouts for potential large drops in traffic over time. I'm looking at the macro niche and category landscape of our search impressions growing or falling over time, and what does the affiliate landscape or just monetization landscape look like in general. And so for digging into that, I'm going to be seeing like, is the affiliate landscape very sophisticated at this point, or is it still kind of in its infancy stages? So you'll see in a lot of like really competitive affiliate niches like CBD or mattresses or others like that, that it is really a market share land grab environment where a lot of these brands are willing to deal custom affiliate deals that are above kind of your typical base rates that you see in affiliate networks, as an example. And so there is a big potential emphasis on business development and actually having like partnerships and relationships with a lot of these brands versus just your kind of out of the box affiliate deals that you might get through just the marketplace on ShareASale or Impact or another one of those guys. And so looking at the sophistication of those affiliate landscapes is important. There are certainly some categories where like the brands just like don't care about the affiliate landscape, or are just and they're just unwilling to budge on like 3-4% whatever of commission, right? And so there's less wiggle room there, where maybe you have a longer term thesis on the growth or the sophistication of that potential niche, but short term, definitely something to take into account into your acquisition thesis. And then certainly for some other types of niches, they're going to be willing to deal a lot more, and there's a lot of value in having kind of those deeper relationships with folks. But yeah, looking at those competitive landscape trends, let's see. The ability to create a competitive moat is important in my opinion. That's not going to be important for everybody, but for the acquisitions that I'm making and the ones that I'm advising on, I really like to see, is there an opportunity to potentially create something that is really hard to replicate and really differentiated, that can help you build a lot of branded impression volume and branded notoriety in the space where consumers or businesses or whoever your target audience is are directly seeking you out for that thing. And something that your competitors is just going to be, really hard for them to catch up. And so, I'm looking for those types of opportunities to really drive something that is going to be immensely valuable for that specific landscape or niche. And so, definitely looking for some of those opportunities, and you'll often find some sites that already have some of those things, which are certainly attractive. So outside of the competitive landscape trends, there's a few other areas that I like to dig in: content, link analysis, and then monetization analysis. So touched on monetization analysis a little bit. I'll probably cover that in a minute, but hitting on link analysis first, I think this is obviously really important for anyone who is acquiring an SEO first asset. You want to be able to benchmark your overall link authority and just overall link profile versus your competition. Are you at a similar stage of authority as some of the top players in the landscape? what does your link velocity look like versus your competitors? So how fast are you gaining links, and are you outpacing the competition, or is the competition significantly outpacing you in terms of net new linking root domains per month or quality linking root domains per month, which can certainly inform how you potentially build links in the future if you do acquire that asset. Or it could be a red flag if there's a lot of links dropping off and that curve doesn't look so great. I'll also look at topical relevancy distribution of links and really understanding how does Google potentially see this site and what they're an authority in, and is that significantly different than the competition, and is that difference a good thing or a bad thing?
Are you using Majestic for that, or what's your tool of choice to do that?
Yeah, I like Majestic Topical Trust Flow for a quick analysis on topical relevancy distribution. I'll also just do my own analysis based on the sites and pages that those links are coming from, and essentially just doing some text analysis to understand the categories behind those. So looking at that as well as just the pages that they're going into on the site. So if the site covers a myriad of different subtopics, then just understanding the percentage of the link portfolio that goes into those different areas, and then again the types of sites that are linking to those and what topics they're talking about, and then layering in stuff like Majestic Topical Trust Flow is a great way to get kind of a topical relevancy distribution of the site to understand if that is a big risk or a potential really big benefit of acquiring that property. And then other link analysis stuff, so anchor text distribution, obviously a really common one for link analysis. Also just going to be looking at signs of blatant spam and just other red flags in the link profile, and then also just how they're building links. So what are the tactics that they're using? Are they really overweighted on one tactic versus another? Are there some riskier tactics that are making up a larger percentage of their link portfolio that are going to increase the potential risk on that investment? Or are they getting a lot of natural links coming into their link profile that are really solid from relevant publications? So that is a big component of the due diligence is understanding kind of the foundation that the site is built on from a link standpoint.
Nice. That sounds very comprehensive. Love the kind of thought process to do things like look at link velocity, look at not just the traffic of the site, but individual URLs in case one or two domino off, or even a top few keywords. That is a smart way to make sure you're making a good acquisition for sure.
And I wanted to hit two other things on due diligence real quick, to make sure
close the loop.
We close the loop on that. One is on-site content analysis, looking at any major technical issues, and then content quality versus the competition, and seeing is this going to be able to be sustained over time, right? Like, will that content stand the test of time? Or does it need to be significantly overhauled? And then looking at the history of that site, whether it's archive.org or, other methods to really understand where it's been. And then I'll also do some pretty significant monetization analysis as well, which I sort of touched on with some of the affiliate deals. But really, like, how stable are their revenue streams? How diversified are their revenue streams? Are they getting revenue from affiliate, info products, display, other like fixed fee ad placements, things like that? And then I think risk of monetization is really important as part of your acquisition thesis. There are a lot of potential buys out there where they have monetization deals that are based on personal relationships, that if that person sells the site, the risk of that monetization or that revenue stream going away is pretty high. There's a lot that just needs to be considered on that front as well. And then I mentioned the macro environment, but just doing some deep monetization analysis for current, how they're making money, as well as stuff that you can immediately turn on. Again, going back to kind of your growth thesis for acquisition is a really important aspect of due diligence. And then, if there's any significant monetization deals that you have and they have, that's actually a really big component of a lot of these bigger acquisitions that we've seen in the SEO landscape over the last several years is essentially acquiring direct competition. So I mentioned earlier around the sophistication of the affiliate landscape in certain competitive niches. If you have custom deals with certain brands or just other ways of monetizing that your direct competition don't have, that difference is obviously an immediate, growth lever.
Makes the deal make sense.
Yeah, I've seen commission levels where companies have 10x the commission percentage of the base level affiliate deal, where it's like literally financially irresponsible not to buy your competitors.
They should, just go buy everybody.
For sale. Yeah, exactly. And so
I've heard about that with Amazon, where it's just like, a lot of people at scale get better deals sometimes. It's like, how do I get a better deal from Amazon? And stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.